Okay, so today GoPro actually made quite a large announcement for those of you who paid attention, and that is they have decided to release the GoPro Labs firmware not only for the GoPro Hero 8, but for the GoPro Hero 7, the GoPro Max, and the GoPro Hero 9. So for those of you looking to own those model cameras, you can now download the GoPro Labs firmware for those, and I'm going to show you exactly how to install it. Now for this example, I'm actually going to use the GoPro Hero 9, and the best way to actually do this is to actually just get your camera, like so, and pop out your SD card. Now, it can be kind of tricky to do, but I've never had any problem just sticking my little finger in there and getting the SD card out. Well, open up your web browser and go to the GoPro website. So we just Google GoPro.com. Now what you'll want to do is you'll actually want to scroll down to the bottom here, and you'll want to click on GoPro Support. Once you click on GoPro Support, just click on GoPro Labs. As you can see, we're at the GoPro Labs homepage, and what you want to do is click on Get Started. So this tells you some of the things that the GoPro Labs can actually do, and we're going to click on GoPro Hero 9 Black because that's the firmware that I want. So if I click on that, as you can see, it's starting to download the GoPro Labs firmware. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stick my SD card into my PC here. Now the reason I'm using the SD card and not connecting via the actual USB cable is because in MTP mode, if you connect your camera, you actually won't get access to your root folder here. What will actually happen is it will actually open up your basically this view here, which is all your files, and you actually won't be able to actually do anything with this. So what you need to do is actually use an SD card reader and make sure you have access to the root folder of your GoPro. Once that's downloaded, I'm going to click on these buttons here and just click Open. And this is the downloaded firmware here. Now what you want to do is make sure you have your SD card open here. You just want to get that update folder and drag it in here. So what you should see now is basically a folder in here called Update with Miss DCIM, and that is it. That's all you have to do. So once that's done, all you have to do then is remove the SD card from your PC and reinsert the SD card into your GoPro. So now that the SD card is actually placed back in your GoPro, all we're going to do now is power it on. As you can see, the update process has begun. You can tell with that little icon there, it's flashing away. Now, the back screen is going to say the same thing, that it's actually updating the firmware. I'm just going to hold this up so you can actually see the message that pops up. So now you can see GoPro Hero 9, GoPro Labs firmware. Update complete. So now that that's done, here's where you go next. Going to go back to our web browser here. And I'm just going to go back one page to where we were, the GoPro Labs. And you know, I'd advise you to bookmark this page because you may actually want to, reinstall firmware at some stage. But we're going to go to create your code. And this gives you like a whole list of things for precision data time, QR control customizers. Now the one I really recommend here is owner's information. And basically what that does, it allows you to actually put in 3 lines of code here, which will pop up on your camera every time you power it on. Now the nice thing about that is the information is actually stored on the camera itself. So when you power it on each and every single time, that message will be displayed. So if you ever lose your camera and somebody else finds it, even if they remove the SD card, if they put a brand new SD card in there, that message will actually still pop up on the screen. So it's advisable that you put the owner information in there just in case you ever lose your GoPro or God knows have it stolen. So what I'm going to do is put in DemonView LLC, GoPro Hero 9, Labs firmware. What do you do from here? Well, simple. Make sure your camera is turned on and then just have that QR code displayed on the screen, point your camera at it. And that is how simple it is just to update your camera with the GoPro Labs firmware. So there are a few other things on this that I definitely recommend that you do, and here's just a few of the top ones. Now, the owner information is definitely one of them. That's one of the first things I think you should do here. Now, another good one, it's actually built into the menu of the GoPro Hero 9, but if you have the 8 or 7 or even the GoPro Max, it's something worth looking at, and that is a delayed reaction. Basically, you can actually program in your GoPro to start recording and finish recording at a certain time. So, you know, basically, let's say you actually want to record something that's going to happen at 5 o'clock on the dot. Well, that's how you set it, by using this. Motion detection, also a good one if you want to use your GoPro as a security camera, and speed activation. And that's good for those of you who might want to actually use your camera on your motorbike or car and have it only activate after you go over 30 miles an hour, let's say. Extra long time lapses is also a fantastic function, because what it will actually do is it will power off your camera and then power it back on when it goes to take the next actual photo in your time lapse, and this means it actually extends the life of your battery quite dramatically. And if you're using a GoPro Hero 9 that actually has a much larger battery, this is really awesome. For those of you with the GoPro Hero 8, I found this really did extend the battery life when filming time lapses, and I do recommend it. So one of the things I found online is that if you go to Android or your Play Store, look for a program called QR Control, and basically what that is, it's an Android program that basically lets you program in QR codes directly on your phone that you can then use with your camera. And this is for the GoPro Labs firmware. So basically it allows you to actually set different modes for, you know, doing things like time lapse or time warp photos, knife photos. It lets you to adjust the Pro Tune settings. You can even set up preferences on your device, such as GPS, the type of boot mode, whether you want your LEDs or Wi-Fi on or off. So I really recommend that you get the QR Control app to go with this as well. So that's basically an awesome update from GoPro. It's absolutely fantastic that they've actually introduced this to other cameras, because I actually didn't think they would. The GoPro Labs was supposed to be a once-off thing that they did for capturing a very specific shot, and because people actually wanted it for their other cameras, it looks like GoPro responded and said, yep, go ahead. Now there were hints about this, because if you actually see the write-up for the GoPro Labs firmware, you'll actually notice that even though they're talking about using it for a GoPro Hero 8, in the picture they're actually using a GoPro Hero 7, so they did have it running on other devices. So, you know, if you want to play around with GoPro Labs firmware, I really do recommend it. It's got some fantastic advantages, and one of the best things about it, which, you know, some people have overlooked, is that it doesn't actually take away any of the changes that your latest firmware has made. This just adds functionality. So if you have the latest firmware for your camera and you're actually worried that the GoPro Labs firmware will actually take away some settings or change things, it won't. It sits on top of it, it's absolutely fantastic, and if you have issues you can actually just, you know, revert back to your old firmware anyway. I still recommend the GoPro Labs firmware. It's absolutely fantastic, and I'm sure you're going to get great use out of it. So that's my write-up on the GoPro Labs firmware. I hope you have fun playing with it.